So now we need to add the methods to the settings view controller file in MyPadWorld. These are methods for managing the modal view and performing actions connected to the slider, the text field, and the Done button. Now here we are in MyPadWorld in the settings view controller.m implementation file. And we have just added the synthesize statement for our slider and delegate accessor methods. Now before adding code to this view controller object, it helps to know what each section of the code does, this code provided by the template. Now the template put in code that includes pragma mark statements like this one to mark off each section so we can quickly jump to the relevant section where we need. Now at the very top here in the import, the first thing we're going to need to do for the settings view controller is to import MyPadWorld view controller.h. We also need to import the constants file that we created, and that was for the user preference settings keys, constants.h. And we have added our synthesize, which tells the compiler to create the accessor methods for slider and delegate. Now what we want to do is move down to the view lifecycle, which is clearly marked here, and if we had a lot of code in between, we could easily jump to it right like this, because those are the pragma mark statements in this menu up here. So view did load, we'll bring front and center. And here's where you do additional setup after loading the view. And here we want to set the background color and the text color for the text field and the speed for the slider and the value of the slider to display and so forth. So let's get started with that. We have a super view did load already. We need the text field background color to be, we're going to use a UI color object, and we're going to use the white color. That's for the text field background. Now for the text field text color, we're going to set UI color. I think we'll use blue color for this one. Now as you recall, we're going to set our slider value to plus K max speed minus the MyPadWorld view controller self parent view controller, which is where it's located, speed. Okay. And our slider display text is going to be an NS string with the format, we'll use this convention slider value. And with that, we are able to display the value of the slider as text. And now we have to obtain the text for text field. So with this, we're able to display the value of the slider as text. Now we need to add the methods to obtain the text for text field. We're going to put them down here right after the view did load method. We're going to start with a pragma mark statement. First one draws a line across the jump menu up here where they're going to show up. That's already there now because we typed that. Now we're going to add pragma mark, and we're going to call it text field. This is a section of code that will be marked for text field. It's optional to do the pragma mark statements, but it helps us if we want to be able to jump straight to it. In fact, here is our text field right here. So to begin, these are our text field methods. First one returns a Boolean, and its text field should begin editing, and it fills out the rest of us for us. And all we need to do, it's a UI text field, as you can see, which is a control that displays editable text and sends an action message to a target object when the user presses the return button. Here's the text field, and the methods here are going to be defined in these brackets. It already puts in the second bracket for us. The method we're going to define here is text field set return key type, and then we're going to pick return key next as our key type, and we're going to return a yes. Now let me explain that. The UI text field delegate protocol defines the messages sent to a text field delegate as part of the sequence of editing its text, so that when the user performs an action that would normally start an editing session, the text field calls the text field should begin editing method, first to see whether editing should actually proceed. In most circumstances, you would simply return yes from this method to allow editing to proceed. What we need now is a text field should return method. So let's add that one in here. Also Boolean should return. So it fills it out for us with the UI text field, and we type our bracket to define, and it automatically creates the other bracket for us. And for this method, we are saying text field resign first responder, and then return yes. So what's happening here is the text field calls the text field should return method whenever the user taps the return button on the keyboard to find out whether it should process that return. You can use this method to implement any custom behavior when the return button is tapped. But for the purposes of MyPadWorld, we simply return yes, which is the default. Or we could have returned no to ignore the return button. Now our next job is to provide a speed changed method of type IBAction to handle a change in speed. So once again, we're going to create some space here and put in a pragma mark statement so that we can find this area later. And we're going to call this one controls. Type a little more space. Now, we're going to add the speed changed method as an IBAction. IBAction, speed changed, ID sender. Put in our bracket and it creates the other one for us. So here, this method uses the delegate's change speed method to immediately change the speed of the animation if the user changes it in modal view. So it'll happen right in the main view while they're changing it in the modal view. In order for that to work, we use delegate change speed for our UI slider value. Next, we change slider display text, NS. That's an NS string with format, so we can get the value turned into a string, so we can send our value. So that's a speed changed method, which handles a change in speed. Now we also need to supply a done method that handles the possibility of a blank text field. So we're going to put that in right down here. Scroll up so we can see what we're doing. That is also going to be an IBAction, done, and then put in our bracket. So what happens with a blank text field? Let's test for it. If the text field text is equal to string, and here we put in our blank, and we put in a bracket to tell what to do if that's true. Well, if that's true, then the delegate following words should become the text field text. What this says is if the text field text is equal to string, if this is not the case, then delegate following words equal the text field text. And self delegate settings view controller self did finish with change yes. We changed it to the text field. Now, if it's not a blank, that's what happens. If it is a blank, then our self with delegate settings view controller self did finish with change no. So that handles the possibility of a blank text field. It assigns the text field's text to delegate following words only if the text field is not the text field equal to blank. So only if the text field is not blank. Finally, to make our app act like a good citizen and relinquish slider to free memory, we need to add code to the view did unload, which is right below us here. Since this will be a new section, we're going to mark this section out with our pragma mark, and we're going to call this memory management. Now in the view did unload, we will release retained subview, the main view. It even gives us an example here of how to do it. Self my outlet is nil. But we're going to do that exactly. We're going to say self slider is nil. And now we need to find the dealloc method, which is up here. And here we're going to put in a statement before the super dealloc statement. And that's going to be, again, our slider, self slider nil. So this is fine so far, but we still have one more problem, and that is where the modal view should be initialized and set up. And after all, how would the MyPadWorld View controller even know about the new speed setting and change it? This is what we're going to do next.